Hi, folks. Andy here. Happy Thursday. Let's do some career coaching stuff today, talk about interviews. But you know, the one thing I want to know is get in the chat and tell me your one-word mantra. And if you have no idea what I'm asking for, you didn't catch the video on Tuesday, my heart-to-heart with you for Valentine's Day, even though Valentine's Day is tomorrow. Get in there and let me know what the words are. Tenacious Robin, love to hear it. I think somebody, who else was in there? There was a whole bunch of people sending me their messages in my DMs and those kind of things. But if you didn't catch the video on Tuesday, please do. Today, I would love to talk about interview answers. I get a lot of questions about how long should my interview responses be. And for those of you that came to this video or this show to know what it is, well, sometimes those questions can be answered in 1 second with a yes or a no. Sometimes it's 1 minute. But not to spoil the punchline here, but whenever you get into an interview and you have a base story, I call them power stories, but effectively you are describing a project that you've done that is the most illustrative representation of how you will perform in their environment based on a project that you've done that's greatly similar to the kinds of things they want you to do in their environment, whether it's sell something, market something, account for something, build something, run a project related to something, whatever it is that you do. I want you to know you should be able to answer that in 3 to 5 minutes. That's your answer. And if you're wondering, how the hey do I do that? What I really want to dive into today is why you're not able to. Because in 3 minutes, they should know if they're going to hire you. They probably know in 30 seconds. But in 3 minutes, if you really pack a punch-worthy story filled with information that checks a lot of their boxes related to the requirements they're looking for from a features and skills perspective, but also sees from an impact and an accomplishments perspective how you actually helped a previous employer achieve something, or even if it's a thought process that you're going through, when you're actually walking them through a story, you should be able to do it in 3 to 5 minutes. Now, if you're wondering, well, how do I do that? Or, yeah, that's about how long my answers are. What I would tell you is I coach people every single day, literally. Not a day goes by except the weekends where I'm not talking to somebody one-to-one, where I'm coaching them on how to perform in an interview. And I can tell you there are a host of problems when you are responding to an interview question that are really costing you points. And there are a number of things that have to do with the organization of your responses that make it take longer, that make it weaker, they're just fill it with dead weight words that don't mean anything and don't paint a vivid picture. So what I'd like to do today is I want to tell you what those problems are, why you're not able to pack a powerful punch in a few minutes. And yes, there might be shorter answers and some interactive dialogue that you have with the interviewer, but basically what I'm talking about today is when you have a main story that you're trying to tell, you should be able to get the lion's share of the information that they need to know. And I'm going to stress that, the information they need to know. And I'm going to tell you why you struggle to do that. Cool? Who's charged? Don't worry, we're going to get to those one-worders. I'm going to have Kara grab some for me for anybody that was on a little delay there. That's putting in their word. But when we hit the Q&A, we'll definitely give y'all shout outs. Kara, see if you can grab those for me. Okay, I'm going to switch over to, I'm going to run you through some slides today. And one of the things I want you to do as I'm running you through these slides, I want you to think about what would be your most representative story that you are virtually certain, dare I say 100% certain, that you will want to share with an employer in an interview because it is the most accurate representation of how you will perform in their environment. All right, first issue that a lot of you have, and I want you to think about this as you hopefully can work your story a little as I go through the structure here. I want you to take some notes related to your individual stories. The first thing is your answers generally are not organized. I can keep the outline of every interview answer in my head because it should be the same for any type of question that you get asked. So there's an organizational component to it that needs to be dialed in. The story itself, you're trying to share information that doesn't really matter for story purposes. And what ultimately, let me take me off the slides here for a second. What ultimately are we trying to accomplish? Here's one of the biggest mistakes that I see people that I coach make, and I'm going to say 100% of them. When I'm role-playing with them and I'm asking them to share their story, or I'm asking them questions to prompt sections of the story that we are trying to assemble, what people do, raise your hands if this is you. Everybody in the chat's going to raise their hand for this one, so don't be bashful. You're trying to relay a story based on what actually happened, the way you remember it in your head. Who does that? Right? You're trying to answer somebody. I asked you a question. Tell me about this project or whatever it might be, or tell me about a project. You can choose it. Doesn't matter. And then what you do is you start literally telling me about it, the parameters, the steps, and things of that nature. And that's totally, totally wrong. You are in an interview to sell yourself. We tell stories for selling and marketing purposes. We only use the information that illustrates what it is we want them to feel about our qualifications. That's right, feel, because they're thinking 4 times faster than you're talking. So what they're doing is they're sending their little brains signals about whether you're organized, whether you're smart, whether you're a good communicator, whether you have the requisite skills. That's what they're doing. They're not going to remember what you tell them. What they're doing is they're storing feelings about you to make a decision, and they're extrapolating those. So what you're doing is you're filling in a lot of information that is not germane to the story. Let me give you an example from a couple of sessions I had this week. And I'm going to dive deeper into this as we go through the steps. So I had a woman on Monday, fantastic, highly accomplished, nursing background, is going to be, maybe she's here, going to be moving into an operational position. She's got the qualifications, the experience. And when I was asking her, I start out with, well, what was the problem? And she said, well, there was poor communication, as she was trying to describe some of the background, which I didn't even actually need to know, because even though you have poor communication, that's not central to the skills you're trying to portray and the story you're trying to tell to market you. Because ultimately, we want to tell the employer how we actually solved a business problem that they care about. Poor communication is just going to lead to something that was a problem. And in this person's case, it was the nurse's communication to the patients, while the poor communication to the doctors basically meant that the patients weren't informed, they weren't satisfied. Ultimately, the customer experience was bad, the satisfaction scores were low, which meant future business was going to suffer because they were not getting positive reviews. So they were jeopardizing future business revenue by not doing great customer service. That's going to be more important for me to understand. All the other symptoms are secondary. I had another person, when I asked him, he was designing a new product, a system that his company was going to use to operate some of the back office stuff. And one of the things I said, what's the problem? And he said, well, basically the salespeople had bad attitudes. They weren't putting, information in the system. That's not the problem. We don't need to know about the salespeople. We don't need to know that they have bad attitudes. We don't need to know why they're not doing something that's leading to a problem that you ultimately need to communicate, which is there's information the management team is using externally with investors, with banks, with other external parties where the information is inaccurate. It could be illegal. It's misinformation. It could be lack of compliance. Those are the issues. And what he's trying to do is sell himself and how great he is at troubleshooting problems and getting requirements and building systems. The salespeople have nothing to do with the story other than they were the operators of the system he was creating. What he's trying to project is his ability to build a system that contains data with accurate information. Do you see what I'm saying? And you're wasting time talking about things that don't represent what you need to represent about you in the interview. And so this is really, really important. And you're wasting a lot of time up front with a lot of dead weight information that, while true, does not sell you. It just takes you longer to explain. You follow me? Do you see what I'm saying? This is just a couple of quick examples. But what happens is you have a lot of this in your story that doesn't matter because you don't work your stories backwards, which is the way you should be. What is it I'm trying to show them? It's all about, do you have the skill sets and have you helped previous companies transform in these related areas, their goals, their problems, your responsibilities, and so on. So you want to keep your story super focused. All right, the other things that are at issue. You're not talking about the great eight. Those two illustrations that I just gave you, and we'll go into what the great eight are. But every story that you start should start with a great eight component, and I will tell you what that is. But these are, what I'm alluding to here is the very, very specific accomplishments that employers care about. You make the money, you save the money, you make it easier for other people to make the money or save the money or whatever it might be. But we'll run through those real quick. You're trying to be specific about the skills you have. You never need to say, I have this skill, ever. A skill is deduced based on an if-then. If you were able to do that, you must. If you were able to run that project on time and on budget, and it was complete, then you must be organized. You must be a good project manager. You must know how to manage the staff. All of that gets deduced. I don't ever need to say it. So this is really, really important. Remember, we're in an interview, not on a resume here. You're explaining what happened. That is never, ever, ever your job, is to explain what happened. It's to tell a story that illustrates how you will help them transform based on what you did. And you can be selective as far as the components that go into the story. It is not your job to answer their questions either. Ever. Does that sound odd? It is your job to give them the information they need to know to make a good choice about hiring you. You can ask me any question and I can give you the same answer or same story for it. So it makes no difference. It's up to you to think backwards about their goals, their problems, and what they truly need to know. You got a lot of dead weight in there. And dead weight comes in multiple forms. It comes with information that doesn't need to be shared, information that doesn't need to be shared that also doesn't sell you. I don't care the attitude of the salespeople. It makes no difference. That's dead weight in the story. The story is about how you got a system up that enabled your management team to have accurate data. So keep that in mind. And then the other thing that I have to absolutely take a knife to when people tell me their stories is I have to take out all the dead, fluffy words that don't actually say anything specific. Strategy, plan. A lot of those words, when strung together, don't paint a vivid picture in my mind of what's actually happening. So the context up front that you need to provide has to be very, very specific and very, very detailed. Not detailed in length, detailed in words, not number of words. The words themselves need to be descriptive. Okay, you don't paint the vivid picture because you got a lot of that dead weight and you're not thinking about what is it I want them to feel about me and think about me when I tell the story. Does this, who struggles with this, right? This is really, really bad. Like and a lot of people have all of these issues when they go into an interview. And so I want you to think about this, because if you have these issues, even if you are a dead 100% bullseye candidate, you can still run into trouble. Who's with me? Who's tracking? Good? Is this thing on? All right. So now, how do we eradicate these issues? Well, you can use my CAR technique. That stands for give them some context. So why does the story matter? Why is it important? And you're also going to tell them the answer up front as to what your accomplishment was. And we'll walk through this. Then I need you to very quickly run through your overall procedures, the steps, the outline. And why do we want to do this? Because you want to do it for a number of reasons, but basically you want to give the listener a map of the story you're about to tell. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I have a system or a playbook or a procedure, or if I reverse engineered this on the fly, this is what it would sound like. And people who have systems, people who have overall programs, people who have a 1, 2, 3 about them, they get paid more, right? I'm going to pay more for somebody who understands the entire picture. So you want to be very vocal, verbal, and specific about what the overall picture of in steps, in terms of steps, takes. And just so you know, it takes you probably not even 30 seconds to say number 1 and number 2. I know step number 2 takes me 11 seconds to say 8 steps because I timed myself. So that's really important that you start out on the right foot, and then you get to go through the stages of your project with information about each of the steps, and that also does not take very long at each stage. It really does not. And then you give them the result again. So what does this look like in practice? All right, so the first thing is I want to talk about the grade 8. So when you start a story, the story never starts with the first thing I did was. The story starts with why was this even important? So the customer service project manager who's implementing a new project, an IT project to build a new customer service system, doesn't say, I was asked to build a new customer service system. We know that. That's implied. I don't even need to say that. And if I say it up front, it's really boring and it doesn't tell me any reason why this was important. You score no points for being important versus the IT project manager who said, well, in the past 3 years, we were losing 25% of our customers every year. That was costing us about $60 million in customers that were leaving. So we needed to figure out how to fix it. That's how you open up a story, right? We were losing money. We had bad customer service. And so I'm being brought in to eradicate that. Now, my part in eradicating that is building a better system. I'm not doing everything, but that's why you were doing it in the first place. That makes you sound more important. It also gives you that big picture thinker label. It also gives them an idea of how critical this project was. So what conclusions can I draw from this? Wow, you must be important if they entrusted you with such a big problem. It doesn't matter if it was a $10,000 fix. This is a big, big issue. Your solution doesn't need to be elegant or overwhelming. The impact needs to. So right away, I could just say that. I coached a woman once, was a kind of a chief operating officer type of person. And she was, and I were doing some interview coaching, and I was asking her, let's talk about some of the primary goals of a chief operating officer, right? You're gonna run sales, you're gonna run marketing, you're gonna run services or service. Maybe you got the HR component, you've got a number of these other things. So we were talking about one of the major impacts she made in helping a company grow. And she said, well, in the first year, I helped the company grow $17 million. That's revenue increase. It could be value creation. It could be profit. It could be something of that nature. She's going to hit one of the great 8. But for context purposes, you don't want to say, I came in and it was my job to grow the revenue. That's boring. We know that's your job. We know that's what you do. I can see it on your resume and I know what you're interviewing for. But when she talks about and gives context to how she makes this happen, it's one thing for her to say, in the first year, I was able to change the systems and change the personnel, and we were able to grow $17 million. It's a whole nother thing to say, I joined this organization because after 3 years, they were stuck at $50 million in revenue and couldn't figure out how to grow when there is a huge market demand for their whatever product or whatever service. And I knew if I could fix the systems and the people components of this through a series of projects, that there was at least a 40% lift I could make in the first year. And as it turned out, it was $17 million or something like that. That helps the listener understand that it's not that you lifted at 17 million. It's that they couldn't figure that out without you. Does this make sense? Do you understand? There has to be context so that I understand that this problem was really hard that nobody could solve. Then you came in because you had this experience, and you're going to tell me right away what the opportunity was or what you were trying to fix, and I'm going to make the natural assumption. If you tell me you're losing 25% of your clients and that's $60 million, I'm going to make the assumption that you fixed that because you otherwise would not have told me that. This is so important. I spend the most time in the beginning part of the answer changing the way my clients think about how they respond. And it takes them a number of iterations to get it right. And it takes them a number of iterations to reprogram their mind of where a story starts. You start with the impact. You start with the end result. You don't wait until the end. You want them thinking immediately, this is what you solved. That's part of the context. If you use the STAR technique, you're not going to get to the result until I'm already tuned out. Does that make sense? Okay, and you always want to give them the business problem or goal or opportunity you achieved or problem you solved or how you made it go away up front. The next thing is, then what you're doing is you're foreshadowing this, and here's where you get a chance to actually say something explicit about your qualifications, but only after you've impressed them with the impact this project that you made. So then what you're going to do is you're going to segue with, I was brought in, I was recruited to figure out how to grow this because I have a track record of helping companies grow their business. I was the IT project manager assigned to this because of my specific experience implementing customer relationship management systems, because I've done that 20 times before. This is where you get to stuff your qualification in, but you use it in the wake of a because this is why I was assigned. That's a little chest pumping right there, but it's just the fact, right? You guys with me so far? This only takes seconds to say. So if you put a clock on you, this should not take more than 15 seconds or so to say all of that. It's pretty quick. And then every single one of you, no matter what it is you do, I want you to think for a second. Think about what you do every day, day in and day out, project in and project out. What is it that you do? Do you run IT projects? Do you handle customer calls? It doesn't matter. Every single one of you, any single project that you've done looks like this. You did some kind of research. You did some kind of assessment. Then you identified a solution. Then you presented a business case. Then you built the full out plan. If that was not already built, maybe the plan was built and that was part of the business case. You implemented it, you operated it, you gathered data, and you iterated, okay? That's what the template looks like. Every answer that you give for a base story, a power story, where you're going to walk them through something. I want you to think about this really quickly. I don't care if you researched for 5 minutes. I don't care if it took 5 months. I researched. I did an assessment. I did a diagnostic. Why? Because you have to understand what you're about to do. If somebody already built the strategy for you, you still had to do an assessment of the strategy to ensure the steps you're about to take are in alignment with the strategy. You have all the I's dotted, the T's crossed. Every single one of you never does anything without an assessment of some kind, okay? Then you created a solution. I don't care if the solution was already designed. You confirmed and designed, architected, and blueprint the solution or the alternatives. Then Do not skip this step because you're losing major points by skipping it. I presented the business case. I presented the approach. I presented my plan. I presented my new idea, whatever it is, to whomever it was. So I want you to think about this. I pulled a business case together. I drafted the statement of work that included the plan, the cost, the return on investment, the resources, the risk profile, the whatever. And then I presented it to the management team. That's one way of saying it. Or I presented it to my boss, who is the executive vice president of, or I presented it to the board of directors. I presented it to the CEO, the CFO. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're a 25-year-old junior staff person. You presented it to your management team or your manager or somebody. And why do we want to get this step in? What does this say? Think about this. You're sending the feeling, they're getting feelings about you that A, you know how to make an argument, you know how to prepare a business case or a plan, you have an understanding, you must be persuasive because you wouldn't be telling me this unless your plan got approved, right? I need to make that assumption. And so you're saying this very quickly, but what I'm feeling is organized, knows how to pull the presentation together, knows how to communicate it, obviously is persuasive. I'm running through those. Check, 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 check. And you spent 3 seconds telling me that. Do you see the return on investment when you're using economical wording? Okay, then what? Well, then I built out the full plan once I got the green light. Great. Then I hired the team. I recruited the whatever. I implemented the plan. We put the software in place. We did whatever. Then we turned it on. Then I gathered data for 6 months to see if our customer attrition rate was going down or our retention rate was going up. We evaluated whatever. We evaluated the new patient survey forms, right? I implemented the system with the more accurate data, and each month we were able to reconcile it with the invoices and the accounting books and the so on and the so forth, right? This is really, really important. And then you tuned it if need be. Now, you don't have to say, okay, I went through 8 steps. Here they are. Boom, 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 boom. It might be 5. You might combine a few. But the point is, you can use this as a starting point because when you say, well, I went through 7 steps to implement this. I did an assessment. I identified a solution. I built the business case. I presented it to management. And you're rattling this off and they're hearing you say things in sequence. And this slide took me 11 seconds to say. Literally the whole slide. So you could do it even shorter if you have 3 steps or 5 steps or whatever it is. But the point is, you now are giving them the map so they know when they're listening to you exactly where you are in the story. And you also are showing them, I have a system. I know exactly what to do. Make sense? Okay, that's the second part of the answer. You start with the context that includes the impact and the result. Then you give them your formula, whatever your formula is, okay? But a lot of you, it's going to look like this. Then what I want you to do is I want you to go back. I want you to go back through this, and you're going to go back to the beginning and just say, so in the assessment, again, what did I say in the beginning of the show here? What a lot of you do is you start with step 1, and then I did this. Well, I did an assessment and then I had to interview these people and here's the questions I asked them and the data I was trying to gather. And then I was going to use the data. And then here's how I use the data. And so this is why it takes you 10 minutes instead of 2 minutes to tell the story. We speak in inventories. We don't speak in steps. Even though I gave you a formula of the steps that I went through, I'm not actually going to blow out any of those steps in sequence form. I'm only going to give you the inventory of the factors that I assessed. So what did your assessment entail? So I did an assessment that required me to look at the 17 satellite locations, make sure I understood our prospect base. I evaluated the last year's worth of revenue, the last year's worth of expenses. I gathered all the data so I could draw my conclusion. Do you follow me? That's an inventory. I just told you what I assessed. I didn't take you through the whole assessment. Do you understand? What's happening in the listener's mind? Oh, you obviously know what you need to look at, and you must know how to evaluate it because you use that information, just like you said, to draw a solution. Do you see? Give me a hey in the chat. This is really, really important. You speak in inventories. You speak in lists. Give me a hey, I'm tracking. It's inventory only. Only information that sells you. So I once helped a woman. Actually, I've told this story a couple times, but I absolutely love it. And she was building a new product line. And when we got to her researching step, she said, well, Andy, we had like 7 people from Boston Consulting Group or Bain or one of the two. And they were gathering this data, and it took them like 6 weeks or whatever. I'm like, no, don't say any of that. You don't need any of that. It doesn't matter how you got the data. You got the data. What's the important thing about your story? I know what data I need. I know how to look at it, and I know how to draw conclusions. That's it. That's all they need to know. Do you see how I get amped up about this? This is why your answers are taking so long. That's not germane to the story that you had 7 consultants that were helping you get you data. I don't need to know that. You don't need to share that. And as a matter of fact, that weakens your story. Okay, and the other thing is, it's illustrative purposes. Why is illustrative in caps? Because it's not exactly everything that happened. I'm giving you a year of experience distilled down to 3 minutes. Only what sells you best. So the part about the consultants didn't sell her best. She didn't need to say that. So when you strip out all the A's and B's and C's and D's and all the way through the alphabet, and you're only left with, what am I trying to convey? Write that down. Every single time you need to be asking yourself, what am I trying to convey? What she was trying to convey is, I know how to run a new product launch because I know all the steps. And one of the steps is to gather the data about existing customer insights, the demographics, down to what they buy, how much they spend, where they buy, where they live. Right, that's data I need. I don't care how you got it. That doesn't matter to me. You'll figure it out, okay? So when you go back through your list that only took you 11 seconds to articulate, you're going to hit each step with a few more seconds to explain each. The assessment, I looked at the 17 satellite offices. I interviewed everybody who was in charge of the offices. I collected the survey data, right? That's it. A few seconds. Just give them the insights. And then you're gonna confirm what you told them initially. At the end of the first year, I generated $17 million. But then what you're gonna do is you're gonna pile on top. So your results are said twice, and then you extend the result. Meaning, what I wanted the chief operating officer to say was, so after the end of the first year, I generated almost 40% more, 38%, whatever it was, in new revenue, 17 million. But on top of that, I had also set us up for the subsequent year where we already had a $10 million renewal rate that was up from 5 the year before. Okay, that's an additional. I am the little project manager, and I did this great project, and I delivered it on time and on budget. And you're not going to use the words, but exactly like I told you 2.5 minutes ago. And because it was so awesome, and because I'm so awesome, the entire company is now using my internal project management methodology as the best practice. I built all the tools and templates, right? That's a result. And that's a benefit extension or an additional benefit that you are now going to reap the rewards of in future years. And everybody else is benefiting from your awesome work. So you just want to make sure that you are talking about what then happened and what you positioned the company to do for the future. Okay? So when you think about everything you're about to say, look at what you're including. You do not need to script out your interview answers. What you need are, when I say the thing about the assessment, what's the color I need to add in? So, context up front, Then you sweep through very quickly in 10 seconds your outline of your steps. Then you go back and you spend a few more seconds at each step, and then you confirm it with the result. If you like this, Kara, maybe we can, we'll hold this first and then I'll mention about the book package. But there's a couple of great resources that we have that would certainly help you with your interviewing. One is this job interview playbook. It's a free webinar. You can watch it at your leisure. All you need to do is sign up for it. We'll have Kara swap the pins out. The other one is, I know a lot of you have grabbed this. We still have some copies left, although we're gonna be running out in the not so distant future. So for $7 US, I'll ship you this $29 hardcover book. I'll also give you the $9 ebook and an audiobook you can't get anywhere but from me, and some other goodies that total up to nearly $100 worth of value. For $7 US, I'll send it anywhere in the world while supplies last. That's this promotion. It's still going on. It's been going on since April of 2018. But this promotion is going to be ending at some point soon because we're out of books and I need to do a reprint, and we're going through some new solutions to how to do all that. So anyway, but it's still here. It's still here while I'm talking. So grab this and then watch the job interview playbook webinar. You'll get more like I talked about today. 11:36. Okay, if you enjoyed this, whether you're here with me live or you're watching this on a video or a recording, if you enjoyed it, click the like button. Please share it. People need help. Everybody needs help when it comes to selling themselves in a job interview and their job search in general. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're here with me live, we're going to the Q&A. If you're watching this on the recording, I'll see you next week. I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. Now, couple things. I want to go back to, let me see if I can find, Kara said Amy N. Kara, I might even be able to show this. You said Amy M. Let's see. Let me see if I can pull this up in the chat, maybe. Let me see. Where was it? Brandon, Thomas, Susan, Amy M. Okay, wait. I think I got it. Here we go. Let's look at this. You guys are awesome. Amy M. Strategic. Kara, I was able to find it. Cool. Thank you. Dana, Resilient. I love it. Maniacal. Claudio, what's up, buddy? Baby Girl, Centered. TG, Strategic. Tracy A. Intentional, I think that is. Bruce, Stubborn. Come on, man. Who was saying that? But stubborn in a good way. Like, I ain't giving up. Introspective, Thomas. Radiance. Lisa Williams. My Andy AI. My wife insisted I ask Andy AI because Andy AI obviously knows my wife, and she got radiant. So I love that. I walk around. Crazy 49er, no. Intentional, Rhoda. Loyal, Daniel. Tracy, intent. There you go. Nicole, hey. Rebecca, Driven. Briggs, Possible. Gene, what's up, Gene? Great to meet you last, whatever that was. Last week, I think. Connector. All right. Discipline, Claudio. This is so great. Engaging, Deb. Oh, my God. So great. Kim, Networking. Beautiful. Consistent. Oh, these are great. I'm going to charge this always, Jamie. I'm going to look through the chat. I always do. I always watch this multiple times. I critique me. I watch you. See what you're saying, see how engaged you are, what's important to you. Very, very cool. Okay, Kara, let's go to the questions. All right. And Kara, thank you for those. Karen Villa, hey to you. Can't stop recommending your channel. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. I started a new job last June and already got a new one with the same company for a better position. Thanks for teaching and preparing us for an interview. You're welcome. Thousands and thousands of times over. I love to hear the news. I'm so happy for you. I greatly appreciate your attention. I always hold it sacred, and it just thrills me to no end. I'm serious when I hear things like that because it matters to me. It really does. Thank you for sharing that. G. Morgan, will you give an example of a bad story and a good story? The same scenario. Well, I don't. Uh, you know what? Let's see how I would do this. It's hard to just manufacture a story, a poor story, but lean on the outline I gave you. And if what you're saying does not convey what you're going to do for them and what you have in you that qualifies you to do that, it's not going to be an effective story. Vasu, how do we remember this when we are in front of managers? You never memorize your answers. So think about what happened. So just say, why was I doing this project? What are the key pieces of information I need to share with them? And that's one. The outline, you never have to remember because you did that. And so you're thinking, I did an assessment, I developed a solution, I pitched it, I then, I built the plan, I operated it, I tested it, or I tracked it, and I tuned it. That's it. That's your whole outline. You never even have to think about that. If you're an IT project manager, you have the steps. If you're an accountant, you have the steps. There's nothing to remember. It's automatic. That should be for all your answers, for all your projects, for all whatever it is that you do. You do this every single day of your life. The next thing is, well, what's the key pieces I need to tell them about each step? There's just a couple of pieces of information. So I built out the plan, which included all the different sites. It included this, that, and the other thing. I mean, it's better for you to have as little information. And as you think through your story, just jot a few words for each of the pieces and then just talk naturally. And if you forget some things, don't worry about it. It'll be much more natural if you, like, when we do these talks, I don't ever write anything out, ever. I have a list of things I want to tell you. I know that there's a certain general structure to each of my weekly shows, right? There's a problem or an aspiration you have. We're going to start with that. I know that. We have to introduce it. What are we talking about? Why are we talking about it? The next thing is I have to decide whether I'm going to insert the problems up front or if I'm going to tell you the challenges you're going to have or mistakes you're going to make after I give you the instruction. So all I need to know is, well, is it going up front or is it going in the back? Then I need to tell you the steps. I need to have an example, maybe many examples, or maybe one walkthrough. And that's it. And then recap, and here's the mistakes you're going to make, or here's the things to look out for, or don't be surprised if you encounter this. Here's what to do. And then what are the next steps? That's it. Every show that I give you is structured that way. What if you get interrupted while telling your story? In fact, a good interviewer will interrupt you. Why? Okay. Let's say you're telling me the story and you get to the part where you're going to roll out the plan. Now, I want to ask you a question because I want more information, and I'm asking, let's say, a behavioral question inside your story. And what does that look like? Hey, Lisa, when you went to present the business case, what challenges did you have? Was the management team opposed to anything? Did you have to convince them of something? I'm checking your influencing skills because what I'm saying is, hang on, I want more information. Then you just go back to your story. You give them that info. Great that you asked. Yet one of the biggest challenges. The other thing is, let's say you go through the whole story and that was 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it took you. Then if they ask you an off-the-wall question unrelated to your story, like, tell me about a time you overcame a challenge. You're going to take them back inside your story. Like, well, one of the challenges I had was when I presented the business case, that story I just told you. When I went to the management team and I presented the business case, they were very hung up on this. So it was a challenge to either convince them, or maybe you had to persuade them, or maybe it was something you needed to troubleshoot, whatever it is. And you always want to refer them back into the story you just told, because then you don't need to start the story up again. And now they have context that whatever you're telling them must have been successful because you brought them back to a successful story. Make sense? What's your leadership style? Well, remember that project I just told you I ran? I had a staff of 8 people. Here's what, and then you go into a story about your leadership. So that's a great question. Wait, let me see. Tracy A., if the interviewer knows within 30 seconds if they will hire you or not, you realize during the interview that they will not hire you, is it advisable to end the interview early? No. I would never do that because number one, you might not be doing as badly as you think. Number two, I have never, literally never wasted a minute of my life ever. Because if I'm in an interview or let's take an example from my life. Let's say I'm talking to somebody about recruitment services or whatever it was. And if I knew they weren't ready to buy, my goal in the session was, well, how do I give them value? How do I make sure that they're better for having met me? How do I plant seeds in the event that they ever change their mind? Like I'm always thinking this. And so if I've got 5 or 10 minutes left, or I've got 55 minutes left in an interview, I'm using them. You can practice, you can any which way you can, but there is a level of discipline in which you approach your life that I would never throw in the towel because there's salvageable minutes. I'm going to be sitting in that interview for an hour or 30 minutes or whatever it is. I'm going to make use of that time. And if for nothing else, to get value for me. So that's what I would say. You ever hear me say this, Tracy? And I'm big on this. What can I do with this right now? You follow me? So let's say you're reading the interviewer and he or she isn't having it. What can I do with this right now? Well, I can try to, soften them up. I can try to melt the ice, or I could practice my skills, or I can make sure that I leave a positive impression maybe on 3 other people or whatever it is. So I take the responsibility on yourself. Anna, 123, I'm about to send my first email to a recruiter today. What is a good subject line? Well, if it's for a position, you can say, because it's going to a recruiter, I'm inquiring about whatever position, or I'd love to work at your company, or anything of that nature is okay. Don't overthink the subject line. Lisa White, CAR method is great. No doubt it takes a lot of practice, so answers come naturally. That's true. When I try to memorize, my brain freezes and I sound inauthentic. The first thing about memorizing is I have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel about, if you just search memorize or notes or things like that, it'll come up. I would never try to memorize it because then you sound inhuman. And it's hard to remember all that under duress. It really is. It's hard to memorize an hour's worth of stuff. I would never prep for a show that way. I would never prep for an interview that way. Jill, Andy, what do you suggest when the interview is a job for being an admin? I love admin positions, especially when you're a low admin going for an executive admin job. We've had loads and loads of admins. One of my favorite admins, Mina, sounds like you. And there are loads of stories that admins have. If anything, you probably have more than most because there's so many different things that you do. There's the organization. So every time you prepare for an interview, the first thing, what's the first thing we do when we prepare for an interview? We identify the goals of the company, of the position, of the unit, or the whatever. So what does that mean? And we identify the problems. So if I'm an admin and I'm going to go support somebody as an executive assistant or an executive admin or whatever type of support role you are, you think about, why does somebody need that person? Well, there's the saving time component. So there's the efficiency, process efficiency, and you're saving somebody time because you're doing work, you're readying it for them, maybe it's research or whatever. There's customer service to that individual as well as externally to anybody who would interface with the person you're supporting. Maybe you're the gatekeeper, right? So you need communication skills, you need handling skills, you need organizational skills. There's the process efficiency in general of any of the systems that you're going to set up or workflow that you're going to set up to support that person. Workflow could be, every time I get an email for you, I'm going to classify the emails this way so you know what it is, you know what the top priority is. Anything that comes externally is going to go here. Anything that's internal is going to go here. Anything related to sales is going to go here. Like, these stories are endless what you could be doing in your job. But the one thing I guarantee you is that person is looking for somebody who's organized, who can help them become more efficient, somebody who could be a great face for them externally, right? Because you're a representative of the individual. Maybe you're dealing with people internally in the company, or maybe you're dealing externally. The other thing that you could do is, are you handling one person or multiple? If you're handling multiple people, I need to know that you have a system designed in order to make sure everybody gets great service and that you can handle that, right? A lot of different responsibilities. There's so many things that an admin does. So it isn't about having enough stories or having great base or power stories, because they're going to be falling out of your pockets. Lisa White, describe your leadership style. Should follow the car or just literal answer. Everything you do follows the car. So you can do a couple of things if you want to modify it, but everything has a formula. Everything has an opener, context, or a setup, a philosophy. So if somebody says, what's your leadership philosophy, or what's your leadership style, or how do you approach leadership, or any of that stuff, let me make sure I find the exact spot. Okay. Then what I would say is, okay, so I would say, first thing, insert context in terms of qualification. Well, as somebody who's managed over 4,000 people during her career, for somebody who's managed 18 different teams over her career, right, over my career, team sizes ranging from 5 to 1,000, or whatever it is, right? It's context. That paints a picture. That helps me understand where you are now drawing your approach from. I'm certain that leaders build more leaders. They don't build more followers. And in doing so, you have to focus on what is it that a leader truly does. And a leader isn't just somebody to rah-rah and yell at them, right? It's somebody who's actually helping individuals grow with proper challenges, this and that. So I have basically five key principles, give them a number. So the first thing I need to make sure that I, as a leader, do is, my approach is, number one, in order to lead effectively, I need to truly understand the individual and their motivation. Because even if you're managing a team of 10 people, you're not managing one team, you're managing 10 people. It's 10 people with 10 different upbringings, 10 different belief templates, 10 biases, and all that stuff. You don't have to go into all this in your answer, but you say, it's more important that you are fully understand everybody, their motivations, and their goals. Second thing is, you want to make sure you understand their leadership language, their feedback language, their communication language, because some people respond when they get challenged or motivated. Some respond to support, some respond for pats on the back, some need kicks in the butt, right? You're going to go through. So the second thing is, you need to make sure you understand their communication language, so that when you're interacting with them, to elevate their performance and their enjoyment and their whatever, boom. The other thing is, you need to make sure that they're all doing it for each other, right? People respond when they feel that there is a team bond. So I want to make sure that that's in place, and this is how I do that, right? And you're going through your system of leadership. And so all of this can be nutted down into 5-6 steps, however you want. And you could use many examples along the way. So you got a car that's an umbrella for other little scenarios that you want to give for instances on. But you need to, remember, they asked you about your style, your philosophy, your whatever. So you want to make sure. So like, hey, tell me about a time you disagreed with somebody. Well, I had this situation where I was interacting with a teammate, and like all problems at work, generally disagreements come down to different philosophy on a solution you're implementing, whether that's handling a customer, building a product, or whatever. So I handled it like I handle every disagreement. There's basically 3 things I do. The first thing is I make sure I'm listening because I don't understand everything. I want to make sure that if I see something differently, I'm listening to the person. The second thing I do, instead of trying to convince them that my answer is correct, is I look for, based on what they just shared with me, is there an and solution instead of an or, hers or mine? The next thing I do is, if there is, then I discuss what the possible and potential even better idea can be. Or if I don't see that after I've gathered all the information, then what I do is I share my viewpoint and my rationale, and then we come to blah. Who doesn't want to hire that person, right? 1, 2, 3. So this particular situation with this woman was we were not in alignment over the way we were going to handle whatever. So I listened to her. She told me this. I came up with a solution that was hers and mine blended, even better because I'm such a team player. And right, that's how you answer that. 2 minutes it takes me to say that. You follow me? Every single thing has a formula to it. Because even if they don't like your scenario now, the one you chose, who doesn't want to hire the person that says, I listen first, I look for a combo solution, otherwise I explain myself? Says, I'm not a hothead. I totally am a great listener. I got great communication skills. I'm a well-adjusted adult. I'm going to be a super employee, right? Like, this is how you win the interview. So it doesn't matter what example I give them. And then you go in, the ideal one is a blended solution. As opposed to, when's the time you had to convince somebody and you were right, or you had to get them to see your viewpoint? You still say the same thing. But then you say, but then I needed to convince them. And here's how I did that. Who's loving today's show? If you're loving it, smash the like button. Come on, what do I see? 63 likes? Look, I'm not above asking. Come on, man. Smash the like button. Share this. I told you people need help. Brew, what's up, buddy? Job search challenge works. I have a second interview with a hiring manager next week, then a panel interview. How do you best prepare for the panel interview, which will be the final interview I have to pass? Well, in your library as a boot camper, you have the interview intervention training program. It looks nothing like what was in your library way back when. And in there is how to ace any interview. And inside how to ace any interview, the video, there is a how we address the panels. But effectively, when it depends what the panel's made of, and it also depends on if you're in person or you're doing this via Zoom. It isn't as if you need to prepare any differently for a panel other than making sure you understand who's in the panel. And when you're responding, or if you're telling a story, the one trick I want to leave you with right now is, if you have disparate people, meaning I got the CEO, the CFO, I got 5 staff people, I got a peer, I got my immediate boss. When you're telling a story using the CAR technique, you want to make sure that you're drawing people's attention and you're tapping them on the shoulder along the way to say, and this step right here is going to be really important to the 5 staff people on this panel, because, or you're keeping everybody engaged. And when you're asking your questions, it's okay to ask a question that you ask everybody, meaning, hey, this question is for everybody. I'd love to understand your viewpoint when it comes to what's the most important factor for. Can we go kind of around the room here? And can you give me? So you just want to make sure there's an inclusive approach that you want to take to the panel. And if you're in person, you want to make sure that you're focusing on each of the different people. You're not just looking at the boss. You're not just looking at the head of the person who's on the top of the ladder and things of that nature. I go into a lot of this stuff inside the program. And Jeff, there's also, I'm sure there's something on my YouTube channel as well if you want to grab those. Rhoda, pursuing consulting roles with no specific project yet defined, so choosing stories that show complexity and breadth. Is this the right approach? No. What I would say is, whenever you are going to tell a story, meaning, can you walk me through a success? Can you tell me about a time you overcame a challenge? Can you tell me one of your strengths? Can you tell me how you've done something in your past that's similar to what we're any of these things? They're all getting the same answer. But the story I'm going to choose, number one, is the story that is most closely aligned to the goals that they need to achieve and the likely problems they have that they have to overcome in order to achieve their goals. Because you want to give them a story that is very easy for them to connect the dots based on your background. If you're just choosing some story that's a completely different process, solution, technology, or whatever it might be, that's not going to carry as much weight. And if you say, well, I'm pursuing roles. Well, the roles themselves that you're pursuing some type of general job description, I would imagine, a role type. And if you target a company type, you want to look for a story that's analogous to that company type. So if you're going after a project management in healthcare, you want a healthcare story. If it's healthcare and then customer experience, you want customer experience in healthcare. If you have it, if you don't, then customer experience somewhere. Or if you're going into a financial services solution and you're still an IT consulting project manager, but it's a data oriented solution, you're going to want something that's closer to that. And that you will always have an opportunity to review before you go talk to somebody. You're going to understand that company and the kind of goals and problems it has and what kind of systems or processes or whatever it is that they're trying to implement that they're hiring you for. So I'm all about aligning it to what they need. MC, Mickey, have heard it might be better to make the first offer in salary negotiations to set the anchor. Are there any cases you would be okay with giving a wide range first? Never. Period. Hard stop. Final answer. Daniel Pasco, what does it mean when you get the animal question? Like, if you were an animal, what animal would you be? This question sounds like a we are not going to hire you question. It sounds like they're terrible interviewers. But if I'm going to be an animal, I'm probably going to be a cheetah or something strong and fast. Because I either need to clobber the problem or I need to run away from it. I don't know. I mean, like, these are dumb questions. Or maybe a dolphin, because I love swimming and I love the ocean and dolphins are really smart. I mean, like, this is just, I can't stand when companies do this. Somebody once said, a client of mine, first time this client, okay, I had a client, they hired a guy to run their like networking management group. And it was the first time he was ever interviewing somebody from me. And he asked my candidate what board games they played when he was younger. And I said, don't ever ask any of my people those things ever again, ever. Because number one, it doesn't make you look good and they think it's nutty. And number two, what are you looking for? I played checkers. I played chess. I played Risk. I played Stratego. I played Monopoly. I played Life. Right? Like, what is that going to tell you? That I'm a strategic thinker or not? Or like, I don't get questions like that. Right? So that's what I just don't, that's just dumb. It's wasting, that's the interviewer wasting minutes on you. But if I had to answer it, because you're going to have to answer it because I can't control those interviewers. If you ever get a question like that, then I'm giving them why. I would be this, and this. And I would cover all the bases. Elena. Hi, Andy. What are your recommendations for building the discipline muscle for job searching, interviewing, or anything else in life? Okay. So I go about everything I do the exact same way. My father says I even rest intensely. So when I asked him about my word, he said intense. True story. But I look at anything that I'm going to do. This falls, Elena, into one of two categories. Something I have to do, meaning I get to search for a job because you need a career. I understand nobody chooses or not really loves job searching. And oftentimes you're not choosing to do it. It was thrust upon you, or you were in an environment you couldn't take anymore and you just had to get out for your own sanity. There's things like that. And then there's things I want to build. I'm going through a completely restructuring of my diet right now. And I in order to be effective, I make sure that I am quota driven. So, job searching, the way I stay disciplined is I want to, desperation breeds desperation, but momentum breeds momentum. Action, movement breeds momentum. And I want victories as early in the day as possible. So in job searching, as an example, my discipline says 3 messages go out every single day. That means Monday at 8 a.m., 3 messages are going out Monday at 8 a.m., not Monday at 8:01. They're all going boom, boom, boom. I'm going to hit the button, or they're already scheduled. So I know I need that victory. When I would write the zebra code, that's 1,000 words every day, starts at this time. I finish. I'm going to see how many I can get, but I have a quota. And once you start piling the words up, it becomes easier and easier. But in order to do that, there has to be a plan. Meaning, the night before, I need to make sure I know exactly where I am in the book, so that when I roll out of bed with sleepy eyes, that I'm off and running, and I'm moving as quickly as possible, or I'm getting those victories as quickly as possible. With my diet, I literally for the first time in my life since December 3rd, I've been doing this. Every single morsel that has gone in my mouth, whether it's liquid, physical, anything, has been tracked, so that I could see exactly the consumption of all the different macronutrients and other things, so that I'm exactly in order, that I can never exceed these things. And so when for that, that's a quota, but it's also visibility to it, and it's constant. So anything that I do, there's going to be a level of discipline that breeds success, because motivation, trust me, I want to eat a hamburger just like anybody else, but I haven't had anything like that in a long time. But there's reasons why. So, or for whatever your motivation is, whether it's thrust upon you, whether you're unhealthy and need to get back to being healthy, or whether you want to remain healthy, or whatever it is. So that's the way I approach it, is how do I put a system in place that enables me to do that? And you are in the leadership, I think you're in the leadership program. And for any of you that are interested, a week from tomorrow, Friday, February 21st, I'm giving you, I don't have it, it's here, but my habit building technique. And we're going to go through all this on a week from Friday. So anybody who, maybe Kara, maybe you can drop that in the chat for anybody who wants to check out my leadership program. If you don't want to check out my leadership program, the Zebra Code, this book that I wrote, that I released in 2024, it's a step-by-step guide to mastering career skills that make you a standout professional. This is like my leadership program in a book. It discusses the leadership methodology, the skill building methodology. It teaches you how the methodology came about. I give you 15 great lessons. Habit building is one of the lessons. Building confidence, self-awareness. There's a whole host of these in the book. And then I teach you how to build your career development plan. And so last month in the leadership program, I talked about the methodology. We set everybody up for the career planning for 2025. This month, we're talking habits. Next month, we're talking productivity as well, and running your day. So there's going to be a lot of habit building over the next 2 months if you're interested. Everything is it's routine, meaning there has to be a routine down, a system, because you need those systems to be successful. Brandon, how is interview prep different for an in-person versus virtual interviews? It really is not. It is literally the same. Sheila, I love this question. Sheila Osman, how long should walk me through your CV or tell me about yourself should last when you bring 20 years of experience? Would you recommend to start in any particular way? Thank you. You are welcome for what I'm about to tell you. So number one, walk me through your resume. Tell me about yourself. Share a little bit about you with us. Any of that. Why should we hire you? Any of this starts with your 1-minute intro. If you don't know what the 1-minute intro is, please look it up on my YouTube channel. For those of you that are inside the programs, you have more detail, but there's a 1-minute intro. That 1-minute intro is not you introducing yourself and telling them everything that you've ever done. And it is not the same intro for two different companies, meaning the intro you're going to provide in the upfront part is going to be tailored specifically for who you're introducing yourself to. And why do we want to do this? Because if I go into an organization and I have experience in their industry, I have experience with the solution, I have experience with the function. Those are all different, right? Healthcare is an industry. Financial services is an industry. Solution might be I'm implementing a customer relationship management project. That's the solution. My function is project manager or something like business analyst or engineer or whatever. And so what you're doing is you are looking at who the company is, what their goals are, what their problems are, what the job description is. If you have it, if you don't have a job description, you're going to speculate either which way. You are going to align what you say. Remember, no wasted words. A minute is an eternity when you're saying hello, because you're literally going to list off inventory-wise the exact matches to what they need to hear. If you're looking for a job, I'm a career coach who helps people with job searching and career development or leadership development solutions, right? I've worked with over 100,000 paying students of the Mile Walk Academy and helped them in nearly 280 some odd countries, like literally almost every country in the world, right? I mean, like I'm going to list out whatever I need to convey to you that I match. I'm particularly skilled at helping. I don't know how old you are, Sheila, or where you live. Women over 40 in Sweden. I mean, like whatever it is, you're going to peel it off. I give you the exact formula for how to think it through. That is 30 seconds to 60 seconds. You start with that no matter what, because now you don't need to validate that. You just need to say it. Because now what you're going to do is you're going to walk them through your resume. If you do it that way, if they say, walk me through your resume, then you're going to go and you're going to say, so here's me walking through my resume. Well, I started in 1988 at Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture. I rose through the ranks and I ultimately was managing project sizes of up to X millions and portfolios of whatever and team sizes of that. Done. 10 plus years in 7 seconds. Okay, because why? Because it's a long time ago and it's not germane to the whatever. Right, okay, so then I went to, and at this company, I was on the executive staff where I helped them grow from 5 million to 60 million. I was responsible for the largest business units. I grew them from 0 to 38 million, whatever, boom. Next, go to the next one. Right, so I'm walking it through it really fast. Then as I get to the areas that are most in alignment with the job I'm interviewing for, I'm spending a little more time. This area here, Sheila, you might be interested to know that I spent, from 2004 until 2019 recruiting for 100% of my time, where I was an executive recruiter, So you're going to draw their attention into the area that you want them to get down to, that's most germane to illustrating you have the skills. So now when somebody says, yeah, that guy sounds like 100,000 people would pay for his stuff, right? That's what's happening. And you're spending another couple of minutes doing that, 3 minutes. So you spent 30 seconds to 60 seconds introducing yourself, saying, here's what I'm about to tell you. And then I'm going to tell you all the ways I built all those things I just said. And so it's just a matter of a couple of minutes. You can get so much information. The problem is you're spending time. The reason that y'all can't get your answers down to 3 minutes, or worse, they're too short or they're too long, is because it's the same reason why you can't get your resume down to 2 pages. Because I could get my entire life down to 26 words. I really can. I've had to in the past. So if I can do that, and there's 36 years of work experience, in less than 1 word a year, you can certainly get your interview stories down to 3 minutes or your resume down to 2 pages. But that's a great question. All right, folks, I got to get running. I got a hard stop here at 12:15. I hope you enjoyed this. I love this session, and we've got a lot of great videos coming out on Tuesdays. We've got that interview, the leadership session on a week from tomorrow. If you're interested in that, please make sure to check it out. all of you, I hope you grab Interview Intervention. The Zebra Code, we have a 2-for-1 deal that you can get through me, or you can get this, a single copy, or the ebook or audiobook from the retailers. So that's out and available. And let's see, I think that's probably all the news I want to give you. Otherwise, I got some good newsletters coming, some good videos coming. I've really enjoyed, I can't wait to rewatch this and look again at all those one-word descriptors. If you haven't caught the Tuesday video, check it out. Otherwise, everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see you in your inbox on Tuesday. Take care. Love y'all.